Secret Band is the side project of Dance Gavin Dance guitarist Will Swan, Unclean vocalist John Mess, drummer Matt Mingus, as well as the former bassist Jordan McCoy and Martin Bianchini. Now, this is a project that kind of allows them to experiment a little bit more with the heavier side of things. And Dance Gavin Dance has always been a more groovy, poppier, almost kind of mixing pop punk with post-hardcore sound, and Secret Band is almost the total opposite of that. It's the band at their absolute heaviest, and the comparison of the two, despite the fact that they are basically the same band without Tilly and Pearson, isn't necessarily fair, but it's there as well. As I mean, there are a lot of similarities, but there's also a ton of differences. These are two completely different projects, and it's nice to kind of hear them experiment a little bit more and kind of push themselves a bit more with Secret Band versus what they're doing on Dance Gavin Dance. Starting lyrically and vocally, John Mess has kind of put himself in an interesting position. He's known for his general colorful, off-the-wall lyrics with Dance Gavin Dance, but here with Secret Band, he is absolutely unhinged. These lyrics often make no sense, and yet sometimes, despite that, they can somehow form a cohesive narrative and somehow fit something. I'm just going to read two of the lyrics that maybe give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. And these are actual lyrics from songs on this album. First off, you have, "I'm smoking your pee-pee and drinking all your poo-poo-poo." That's an actual lyric that is screamed on this album, as well as "balls, look at those balls, balls, balls." Where is that coming from? What is going on? What is happening on this album? I mean, it's funny that people always talk about screaming. They always talk about how the guy could be screaming nonsense and you'd have absolutely no idea, and that's literally what's going on here on these tracks. And it's actually kind of interesting to listen to that, because it's done in a completely straightforward, serious way. It's not necessarily meant to be parody or to be laugh out loud funny, but yeah, when you actually dive in and listen to it or read it, it actually is. But it works to the song. I mean, if you kind of shut your mind off a bit and don't pay attention to what is actually being said, it's obviously easy to kind of groove along with it. And it just, again, makes absolutely no sense what's going on half the time. It's something that's really, really embraced here on this album. And the other interesting thing vocally with John Mess here is he's actually kind of experimenting a little bit with not necessarily clean vocals, but not all the way I would call screaming. There's some interesting moments on some of these songs where he's kind of exploring his range and his depth, and there's been some touches of that on Dance Gavin Dance, but I really think he's kind of more testing the waters here, so to speak. And it's something that I think he does a pretty good job with it. I don't think John Mess's voice is going to be suited for clean vocals necessarily to go all the way in, but there's definitely a kind of in-between space where I think he would fit in well, and I'd like to hear some of that kind of trickle over into Dance Gavin Dance or other projects. As I've mentioned before, this is also with Will Swan, who has kind of made a name for himself. I mean, a lot of music has been classified as swancore, kind of mimicking off his sound and his normally kind of groovy, light, airy guitar riffs that are just mixed with heavy bass lines and heavier drumming. And here he's definitely pushing into the more heavier aspects of things. This isn't Cienvar, this isn't Dance Gavin Dance, this is something completely different, and doesn't necessarily have his style, but at the same time it does come through. It's nice to hear him embrace that and hear you get some of those heavier moments with Dance Gavin Dance, but on here it's just in full force. There's these really weird guitar chords, these weird riffs that he's doing. there's just a whole lot going on. You get some straight up chugging guitars. There's straight blast beats coming from the drumming. It's very in your face, very heavy, and it's kind of a nice difference between the two bands. And it's kind of like to hear Will Swan embrace something that isn't traditional for him, or at least what we're used to. Instrumentally, it feels often, combined with the off-the-wall vocals, that they kind of just went into the studio and hit record and just kind of jammed a bit, for lack of a better word, but it somehow feels completely cohesive. It works on here. The production on here is absolutely slick. Everything comes through. John Mess's vocal work doesn't sound scratchy or weird. The guitar riffs, despite the times when they get chuggy, still sound very, very strong. The drumming doesn't sound tinny in any way. It definitely comes through and hits you pretty hard. They did a really good job with this album, especially kind of being a bit of a surprise. They released 2 songs off of this initially as sort of an EP, and then suddenly just dropped the album, their first since 2014, and it's definitely kind of cool that they do this in the way. I mean, the band's name is Secret Band, and they tend to kind of do this where they just, in between Dance Gavin Dance and Cienvar, and which is kind of on hiatus now, but between at least Dance Gavin Dance releases, to kind of have them release something like this is nice. But overall, I think this is an extremely strong album. You kind of got to take everything with a grain of salt, again, especially if you're listening lyrically. It's weird, it's abstract, it's out there. It's definitely a very experimental album. But it still has that signature slickness that everything that these guys do comes with. So make sure if you are a fan of any kind of experimental hardcore, mathcore, or just the band Dance Gavin Dance, I highly suggest checking out the new album Secret Band LP2. Thank you so much for watching the review of Secret Band's LP2. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do you like this heavier side of these members of Dance Gavin Dance? What do you think? What about the lyrics on this album? I want to hear from you. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Also, be sure to follow me on social media, at Metalloud on Twitter, at Metal_Loud on Instagram, and Facebook.com/Metalloud.